What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As you can tell, we're not in the studio that we've been shooting in. Something had came up, but the show must go on. And our guest today knows all about show business. He's a stand-up comedian, Brazilian JiuJitsu Black Belt, yoga instructor, retired MMA fighter, and currently just almost a month, over 1 year of being entirely sober. He's an inspiration to all of us, and I'm super excited to talk to him today. He's going to share a little bit of our journey, or a little bit of his journey, and like always, the point of these podcasts or these shows are to help motivate you to become healthier, wealthier, wiser, and a little bit harder to kill. And I'm sure part of Mr. Shawn's story will motivate you to do exactly that. So Shawn, welcome to the channel, my friends.
That was the coolest introduction ever, man.
Was
you
it?
made me sound way cooler than I am.
Really? Well, I was listening to myself and I said a few words.
Man,
wrong.
I kind of want to meet that guy. I was like, oh, wait a second. He's talking about me.
Yeah, that's you.
This is me.
So your description of your life makes me sound good saying it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that. But I'm going to take my coffee back.
Yeah.
I was listening to myself. I stumbled over a few words, but that's all right. This is rough, raw, and the real deal. So, full transparency here. But Shawn, say your full name for us so everyone knows who you are.
I am Shawn Michael Fitzsimmons. It's very Irish.
Very Irish. That's awesome, dude. Ever since I met you, I saw that. I met you when I was a white belt. I don't know if you know that.
That's right.
We were just chatting out by the coffee maker, and you
was it still Throwdown at the time?
I think it was. Were you there when it was Warrior?
I was there when it was.
It might have been Warrior.
Okay.
It might have been Warrior right before it was even Throwdown.
Was that under Cavalcanti at the time?
Yes. Cool. Yes. When I first started at the gym, which is now Syndicate MMA, Shawn, were you already there? You must have already been training.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Training MMA out of there mostly.
And that's when I met you, and I was like, who is this super tough, handsome guy?
No.
And then you see, if you look at his Instagram, his pictures and videos when he has his hair down, like, I think Fabio.
You know, I hear a lot of Jason Momoa.
Well, yeah, I'm stuck in the 80s.
Yeah, you know what? So whenever it's an older crowd, I'm like, Fabio? It's like, we get it now.
Yeah, totally. Jason Momoa. I don't know too much about this guy. I hear a lot about him, but I don't know what he's done.
He's Aquaman.
Aquaman. Didn't watch that one.
Aquaman.
I didn't watch that one. Yeah, but I hear a lot about him.
Yeah.
Do you watch the Semi-Stupid guy?
No.
Oh, he's funny, man. But he just did one today, I believe, that I saw. Well, I didn't know if he did it today, but I saw it today on Instagram. He's sitting on the couch and they're watching a Jason Momoa movie. He's topless, so his little guts hanging out. He's like, oh, he doesn't look that buff. And his girlfriend's like, I don't know, looks pretty buff. And then he goes on this whole workout thing. It's hilarious. He's a funny dude. Check him out. Semi-Stupid.
Semi-Stupid, okay.
Semi-Stupid.
Yeah, I like that, man. I consider myself kind of right along the same lines.
But you're not, dude. You're not stupid at all, obviously. I would say, if anything, what I've learned over watching your journey through social media over the last, I don't know, must have been, let's call it a decade.
Yeah, definitely been over a decade for sure.
Over a decade. And we've bumped into each other occasionally over the years, been able to train together as we come up through the ranks. You just received your second stripe on your black belt?
Yeah, about 3 months ago.
3 months ago.
Under Fredson Pasha.
Under the legend, Fredson Pasha. I got my purple belt from Fredson. And I didn't show up on the day that he was giving out the promotions.
Oh.
I didn't know I was getting promoted. I didn't even know it was promotions. So I showed up a week later, so I had to get like double the lashings.
Yeah. Was it a no-gi day?
I don't remember that.
The gi absorbs a lot of the padding of those lashings.
Yeah.
So if you get promoted on a no-gi day, get ready for welts. They might break skin.
When I see people doing that gauntlet without a shirt or a gi on, I'm like, those guys are crazy.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
Yeah.
I don't really like that.
I don't know if every academy does that. I know Brazilians are like, man, you get a good licking.
I think the only one I've ever been lashed was through Fredson. That was the only promotion.
If you know Fredson, you're like, yeah, prison rules, Pasha.
Prison rules. Dude, I was so afraid to train with Fredson when I heard about him. Because back then, in 2009, 10, Fredson had a reputation of being a mean grappler.
Yes, Fredson is a fascinating human being.
Yes.
And he's like a firm believer in hard lessons, and and his roles are like hard lessons.
Yeah. Well, I remember I was so afraid to train with him, And my friend
Not
Gunther.
dangerous lessons. I've never seen him injure anyone training. But I have heard. I mean, way back in the day, I know that he was like he's an Amazon person.
He's from the
He's
Amazon.
not. Yeah, he's from the jungles.
Yeah.
He's from a very.
He's
small
from the jungle.
No, well, yeah, he's from a very small tribe, yeah, it's like he just had a very different way of growing up. I believe he has 8 brothers and sisters. They all lived in a 1-bedroom space, and yeah, like
Probably dirt floors, maybe even. I'd love to get Fredson on the podcast. I haven't spoken to Fredson in a few years. Is his English any better?
You'll need me to provide the subtitles. I do not speak Portuguese, but I am fluent in Fredsonese.
So going back to being so afraid to train with him, you remember Gunther?
Yes. The Ute, right?
Yes.
Like he's a Ute.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's popped back up. I know where he's training these days.
No kidding,
yeah.
man.
He's
Good.
at Rob Lagaska's.
Okay.
Yep. He's back on the mats.
Good for him.
So
Good
I think
for
he's
him,
trying
man.
to finally make that final run at his black belt.
That's awesome. He did. I mean, he should have had it. I think it was a brown belt when I was a purple. So,
Yeah. I don't know. He stopped, and then I know he was with Fredson for many years from the time he was white belt to brown belt. Then he disappeared. We used to keep in touch quite often, and then I've seen him in some videos over at Robert Lagaska's place. Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu is a journey, man. So, and everybody's journey is completely unique. You'll hear these stories of people getting their black belt in 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, and that's abnormal.
Yeah.
They've spent a ridiculous amount of that percentage of their life doing jiu-jitsu. But so many people, it's like they take these different avenues through jiu-jitsu where it's like your journey is completely unique.
Yeah.
And it's not comparable to anyone else's.
Yeah.
And that's a really fascinating thing about jiu-jitsu.
And so is life, man. Same as life.
Yeah.
I used to. It's so funny.
Many parallels, and I think you learn the best lessons on the mat that apply to every other aspect of your life.
No doubt.
Like,
And you learn so much just
jiu-jitsu
about
on
yourself.
the stage. I use my jiu-jitsu in the yoga classroom. I use my jiu-jitsu when I go and do like a business meeting. And it's those same lessons you learn, and they apply to everything.
That's awesome. Oh, before I get too far off topic, which I already have, I did just want to say when I finally got to roll with Fredson, I was petrified.
Oh yeah, sorry. We went around the world to get back to that.
If you've watched any of the shows so far, that's what I do.
Good.
That's my life, bro. My
Samesies.
day-to-day conversations.
Samesies, dog.
But I finally get to roll with him, and I'm so freaked out because at the time I was in my early 30s. I was a plumbing contractor or a plumber, so you had to use my hands, and he was very famous for wrist locks. Yeah. And I thought, great, my hand's going to be broken. I'm going to be out of work. I'm going to lose my family.
He is the master of the wrist locks. If anyone says that they're the master, no, it is absolutely Fredson Pasha.
100%.
He is the 100% innovator. It's come in and out of fashion since Fredson first brought him into well-known use in IBJJF. But anyone who knows, it's Fredson. It's Fredson.
So we start to roll, and he can tell that I'm being nervous and being very friendly.
Yeah, he knows that.
And he rolled with me the same way.
Yep.
Friendly.
Yep.
He still tapped me, but he was. And ever since that day, I've been friends with him, and he's a wonderful human being, and he's funny as shit. And I still can't understand a word he says.
Yeah.
But I love him.
He knows that, and he plays off of that. My favorite is Fredson is also sober. God bless.
Is he really?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Really? For how long?
He longer than me. It's been years.
Nice.
I don't want to speak for him, but he's sober. When me and him used to go to bars, he would go to the very attractive female bartender and like, I like your teats. I like your teats. You have beautiful teats. And then, what? I like your teeth.
Oh.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Oh my gosh.
He's a fascinating human being.
He is
I love him to
fascinating.
death.
I do too.
He will always be my brother.
So you had brought up also being sober. You and I mentioned that in the introduction.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're about 300 and almost 400 days.
Yeah, over the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You know what? It's one of those things where the course of my life, I've always done too much of whatever it is. Like I didn't do like a casual amount of jiu-jitsu. I did a black belt amount of jiu-jitsu. I didn't just tap my toes into stand-up comedy, man. Like once I started, I was like, man, I'm doing this every night. And substance can sneak into your life in that same exact way.
Sure.
And then in the world of stand-up comedy, you could be like, oh, this is kind of normal. Like, you can always know 4 or 5 guys that are like, they drink way more than me, so I don't have a problem. And man, it got bad. It got it got really bad.
Now, did this just happen when you started stand-up?
No. So I would always kind of have those little like bouts. Like, so even when I was training, it was like I'd be very like dedicated, and then I would be just this party animal for a few weeks after I had that event. And luckily, but you know, I'd always come back around because like my body was important to me. Like, I enjoyed that process of working out. I enjoyed the process of feeling good, but I also really enjoyed those good times. And then after that first drink, I couldn't promise anything. Like, if I had work the next day, it wasn't a guarantee that I was going to make it there. And that really hurt me. Like, I always wanted to be dependable, but like I could no longer be dependable if I had that first drink.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's really the first step, is like admitting that you're like, okay, like this is a problem. Like, once I have that first drink, my life is unmanageable.
Right. Yeah. Admitting you have a weakness anywhere is hard for people to do.
Yeah. But I think those lessons you learn on the mat, like, this is a weakness. I gotta, you know what? My guard's weak. My guard's getting passed. It's like, we got to strengthen up that guard. And I was like, man, this is a glaring weakness in my game. And I'm like, I got to tighten that up.
Yeah.
And I was grateful for those lessons.
Yeah.
And man, jiu-jitsu's always been there for me. As low as my life has gotten, you know, it's always been there. Is like finding the here and now. And jiu-jitsu forces that upon you. It's like, if you're thinking about how bad your day is going, or your fight with a girl, whatever it may be, jiu-jitsu forces you to be here and now, where you're in a controlled environment fighting for your life. And that applies, your best yoga classes, it's your here and now. That here and now applies to so much, to just where you're at your most happy.
Listening to that, it makes me think of all the years when people would talk about, you know, how jiu-jitsu translates into life. And I would kind of just scoff at it. Like, what are you talking about? You know, this is just a sport, or however you look at it, a martial art. But then I was young. I was older. I didn't start till I was 29.
Yeah.
But some people just have different mentalities. And it wasn't until later in life when I started really seeing the comparisons of really how similar they are.
You know what I find fascinating is jiu-jitsu is so attached to your character as a human being. And that's why you make friends on the mat so quickly, is because once you grappled with someone, rolled with them, had that little controlled fight scenario, you know them so well. You're like, oh, here's where they're resilient, and you know what? You get to know that person very well, and obviously intimately. But it's an extension of who you are, and it expresses itself through movement. And I think that's why there's such a community behind jiu-jitsu, where you're like, oh yeah, that guy's great, because it was like you understood their boundaries. I think in high school, if you ever had a fight with your best friend, you're even better friends afterwards.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
you learned a little something about each other.
I said I had the Ancient Assassin on episode 2 of this MidLife Fight Club, and he's 59-year-old vegan training for his first amateur MMA fight.
No kidding.
And I said,
59-year-old vegan. Man, I don't know about head trauma past a certain age. I think it is much worse for you the older you get.
Yeah.
So I'm worried about Mike Tyson. I'm worried about these older guys getting hit in the head. I don't know if it's the best. I think we lose a lot of the padding around the brain as we age.
Maybe, but you know, if you want to take the risk,
you
should do it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm a firm believer that everybody should have some form of competitive fight in their life.
Yeah.
Like, so that thing that you have to think about for 6 weeks and prepare for, and ideally in that process not get lost in the build up towards it, and then you get to perform.
Yeah.
I think that applies to so many things, and I think so many people never get that, and they're missing out on this huge part of life. When you kind of face that one thing that scares you the most, and you realize it's not that bad,
Right.
then life gets so much freer.
Sure.
So I think everybody should do. I think everybody should have one competitive fight, jiu-jitsu match, whatever it may be. I think everybody should try stand-up comedy once.
Yeah.
Like public speaking is a major fear, and you're gonna realize, man, there's really what's the worst that can happen, and then once you face that, nothing really changes. The same people love you, and all of that is like you get really free in life.
Sure.
And
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, do you think, because you did mention it just now, you said one fight and then you said like a one jiu-jitsu match or maybe a wrestling match or whatever it may be. So you think...
maybe skydive once.
Whoa!
Dude, I was really scared of heights.
Oh, you did? You did it though?
I would say I would have a healthy respect of heights.
So you did skydive? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I live on the 13th floor of a high-rise here in Vegas. And man, my natural instinct would be like, I wouldn't even go up to the balcony. But now I'm like I'll lean on the balcony, I'll look over. I'm like, I keep my feet completely flat. I won't tippy toe. So it's like, now I have a healthy respect versus like not even going out on my own balcony.
Okay, so going back to the one fight, is a jiu-jitsu match enough to qualify for that?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, but I think it's knowing that you're doing this thing in advance. And you train for it, you work for it, but you also not get lost in the build up. I think it's important that you know about something in advance. If you ever just got into a fight randomly, like you didn't get that really important part of like, you should be nervous about this thing.
Right.
And I want you to see how being nervous about that thing makes you respond.
Yes.
Do you get overwhelmed by it when it actually happens, or do you tap into the here and now? Does it inspire you to work harder?
Yeah.
And that's I think the meat and potatoes of what you're trying to get out of the experience.
I wonder what the percentages of people who actually are able to, in their very first competitive match of whether it be wrestling, whatever their sport is, combat sport is, are able to just, on their first match, to just snap into their training. Or if the jitters and the nerves take over.
I got the benefit of teaching kids jiu-jitsu. It was about 6 years between Fitzsimmons and then over at Tribe, where it was very unique to see. There was kids, workhorses, great in the gym every day, and then there was like these kids that were kind of just low for the whole time, but they were show ponies.
Oh yeah,
workhorses versus show ponies.
They just get out there and do it. Really?
Yeah, and it was the same thing I would notice as helping other training partners get ready for fights and stuff. That, yeah, some people were just really great when the moment required it, and other people were really great in the gym, and then maybe not as great in competition, it's fascinating. And I think that's something that someone should learn about themselves. Because it was never something I could be like, you know what, on show day, that guy's going to be great. I didn't know that. I was like, wow. The moment brought something out great in that person.
Interesting.
And I think it would be unfortunate if somebody lived their whole life and never realized that they were that, like, when the moment calls for it, you're great.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important thing to discover about yourself.
So I agree with you. But for me in competition, when I started jiu-jitsu...
You're a bit of a show pony, man. You've done really well at some great tournaments.
For, I call it the old man division, the Masters division, Master 2, I've won a world title at purple belt in the gi and a world title at brown belt in no gi.
That's incredible.
Master 2 medium heavy division.
Yeah, well done, bravo.
However, I lost a lot of matches and anxiety really took over and I could not perform on the stage. So when I started jiu-jitsu, I said, I'm not going to quit this until I get a black belt. So initially the goal was to get a black belt.
That's fascinating. I never thought about belts. I know a lot of people say that, but it was just, I literally just showed up for 21 years.
Yeah.
And it was like, so when I ended up living with Fredson is when I started going through, he promoted me to purple, brown. We lived together for 6 years, and it was just, then we started running the business together.
Yeah.
And that's when I actually started progressing through belts. I got a blue belt, and I was just kind of like, I would train more for MMA than for any sort of belt structure.
Right. Well, this was a brand new, my first introduction to martial arts. So I just figured black belt is the finish line. I'm not going to quit till I hit the finish line.
Good.
Many years
Blue belt's
later,
the black belt of quitters. How many of your homies have you lost along blue belt?
this was a 40 for my homies. Well, I
Pour
lost a
'em
blue
all
belt.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well then, if I've learned anything in life, it's never ending, right? Until you're in the grave. There
It's a journey, man.
Yeah, and
What a long,
so I start training.
strange trip it's been.
Beautiful, beautiful. But the funny thing is, I said that, and then I was the guy when I was at the gym who was just like, oh, I'm only here to work out. I don't really care about the belt, which I didn't care about the belt. I just set this goal, like, I'm going to do this until I get a black belt. So then I start training. I got my blue belt from Gabriel Katober.
Nice. Yeah, I remember Gabriel.
Yeah, he was awesome. His jiu-jitsu was awesome.
Him and Rodrigo Archuleta.
Rodrigo, who's now like a musician, sculptor. Do you watch him on Facebook?
I do. Yeah, he was sculpting. Yeah.
Now he's playing all the string instruments. Yeah.
Well, and he was Olympic level judoka.
Was he? Oh, I thought he
in
was a wrestler.
Greco.
Yeah,
No. But
Greco,
I wonder. I know he was Olympic level in, I think, both. Yeah.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. He was just
He's a monster of a man.
training
Huge
Mirko
man.
Crow Cop. Yeah. So everybody in jiu-jitsu really has that fascinating, and he's also that.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. And then I took a little break. I got my purple belt from Fredson. I took a little break, and then I saw Jamie. He got his purple belt. And for some reason, when Jamie and I first met, he had picked me as his competitive nemesis. That's how he was gauging his progression. I have no idea why.
Yeah, sure.
And it was a strange time because, over at that gym, instructors at that time were always coming and going.
Yeah.
And Cameron had just came in, and Jamie came in with Cameron's group. And I was like, are these guys picking on me? Like, why is... And Jamie was hiring Cameron for privates, so Cameron was kind of like coaching him while he was training with me. And I'm like, why are these guys picking on me?
Right.
They were picking on me. It was just Jamie's like, that's my guy.
Sometimes we build a story in our own heads.
Yeah,
right?
Well, he said like
you
were the
he
guy,
messed up.
but Cameron wasn't like they didn't shoot. Cameron's like, it's that guy.
I like to think that most of these stories that I make up in my head are completely untrue.
For some reason,
but sometimes they're absolutely
like
true.
That tall guy. That's the guy. Anyways, so I stopped training for a little bit. I'm on Facebook. I see Jamie gets his purple belt. And I'm like, there's no fucking way that guy's getting his black belt before me. So I come back to the gym. And I start talking to him. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Because he progressed very fast. It took me just under 10 years to get a black belt. I think Jamie got his in 7 years.
That's super impressive.
Very fast. And he's like, oh man, just training and competing. And I never competed. I competed like maybe once. And I got super nervous. I think I lost. It was a horrible experience. And I said, this isn't for me. I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I compete again. Same thing. Super nervous, can't move, freezing up, gassing out. Nothing like the performance I was putting on in the gym. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, man, I want to be good in competition. I want to be as comfortable, not even good. I just want to be as comfortable in competition, be able to perform the same way I do in the gym around my friends, under the lights, with all the pressure. So that became the challenge. Then I forgot all about the belts.
Yep.
Then it became every tournament I could find, signing up. Then, of course, you start doing 10, 12 tournaments a year. You start winning shit.
Yep.
Then you're like, oh shit. Then you win a world championship. What the fuck? But it was never, that was never the goal. The goal was just to become comfortable in competition. Then, now I'm like, okay, I screwed up at brown belt. I won no-gi, the world championship, bronze in the gi. Went out the night before, had too many beers at sushi. Couldn't perform. Was mad at myself. So I was like, next year, I'm getting that title in the gi. Got my black belt the next month before I could.
Wow.
So,
Good problem to have.
well, I was kind of upset. I was like, oh, I wanted that title. I started chasing the titles.
Sure.
But it wasn't the titles. It was just, I knew I could perform so well in competition, which became my goal. The nerves went away. Yep. I built a system to overcome that huge hurdle. Jamie's like, why the fuck? I was the guy. 2 days out, I couldn't eat. I was so nervous for a jiu-jitsu competition.
Yeah.
Couldn't eat. I'm dry heaving before the match. He's like, what's wrong with you, bro? I was like, I don't know. Now, Jamie had a lot of competition or experience in combat competition as a wrestler in high school.
Which helps a ton, man.
A ton.
That's
because
where a lot of these guys come right into MMA, they shine.
Hundreds
come
of
right over to
matches.
grappling tournaments. It's just they've mentally prepared for that competition many times.
They've done it so many times. It's
you get a lot more consistent with your preparation. in competition, I always felt remarkably inconsistent. Like there was days that I was so dialed in, there was like, man, you did not show up at all. And there would just be different things going on in my head. And it was just consistently tying those things together. But I enjoyed the process of like, wait a second, if I can tap into how I was this day. And that was what was really fascinating to me, is kind of being able to make that more consistent instead of like great or man, just awful.
Yeah.
Just like not showing up.
And
that's what kind of keeps you coming back.
No doubt. And there's so many things that are out of your control too. That's why it's so, I used to be the guy who, why are we celebrating these athletes? What's there to celebrate? They're playing a game and they're getting paid so much money. But really, when you have the guys like the Conor McGregors and the Michael Jordans and the Kobe Bryants, there's so many things that have to line up to have a career like that. So many things that are out of your control.
Oh, absolutely.
And it really is pretty amazing just to know that.
It's a perfect storm of things coming together.
Yes.
I think about Tom Brady a lot,
Yes.
where 7th round draft pick, nobody ever thought much of him, but he just ended up in this perfect situation. And man, 7 Super Bowls later, he's the GOAT. But he was this kid that barely even started in college. And it's just fascinating. Like when everything kind of comes together, you can be the absolute best. And no one saw that coming for him.
Right.
24 years ago.
Or you can be the absolute best and you get a cold the night before the bout, or you break your fucking leg, you know?
There's on paper where you should be the greatest and you should still be the greatest. Cam Newton's a great one, where he's like, he had this rocket arm, he could run fast, and he even showed like this great promise early, but then by the time he was 30, he was like, he couldn't even find a spot in the league. And it was just like, there was something that happened to his confidence or whatever it may be. And it was like that perfect storm didn't keep rolling for him. But yeah, it's just fascinating. And kind of goes back to like everyone's journey is unique and, kind of guides you to where you're supposed to be.
Well, dude,
you got to fail at a lot of things before you figure out what you're good at.
No doubt. No doubt. Fail forward, right? Fail forward.
Yeah.
But dude, so this is, when I think about you, I think I told you this before we started when we were setting up. You're a retired MMA fighter, Brazilian JiuJitsu Black Belt, yoga instructor, and you're living a sober life. Dude, and you do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
So I would say fighting, jiu-jitsu, and stand-up comedy are like 3 of the top 5 scariest things that a human could try to try to attempt in their life.
And they absolutely were for me as well. So they were huge points. Like, so as a kid, I was always so scared that someone was going to pick on me because no one ever taught me how to fight.
Yeah.
Like my dad was an accountant. So I was just like, man, I was just like, the idea of somebody wanting to fight me was just so like scary. I was like, I got to go figure out how to do this. like just like anything, I was like, man, I went to a boxing gym, and then I was like, man, this is kind of fun. I was like, oh, I see those guys sparring over there, and that was scary. I was like, all right, well, let's give this sparring thing a shot. And I was like, okay, this was fun. And then there was a boxing, there were smoker matches. Smokers are like 3 1-minute rounds.
Sure.
I was like, oh man, these are coming up. I was like, but it was just always one step at a time versus like, oh, I want to be a competitive boxer and then a competitive MMA fighter.
So one step at a time of getting closer to facing your fear.
And facing that fear is like, okay, well, if I did this, then I could do this. And it was just one step at a time. Teaching my first yoga class, it was that same kind of anxiety. I was like, man, people are gonna hate me. And I gotta talk in front of this class the entire time. And, it's just like, I did a class to 3 people, and then I did a class to 4 people. And then, so it's just, everything's progressive.
Sure.
It's like, you dip your toe in the water, and then that thing doesn't get scary. And then, eventually you've tried all of these things that scared the shit out of you, and you're like, man, I didn't die during any of them.
Sure.
Like it gives you a lot of freedom.
So you use the analogy of dipping your toe into the water. After you tried MMA, jiu-jitsu, then you go into stand-up comedy. Did you dip your toe into stand-up, or did you cannonball into the water?
Yeah. So a couple of my buddies were doing it. Shout out David Hewlett. Do you know him? He's a black
Hollywood.
Belt. Yeah, that's right. He was there at the same time. So he was doing it. I saw him a couple of times. I was like, I could do that.
Nice.
No, he's funny. He's a
Yeah,
funny guy.
I love
too.
David. We spoke probably about 6 months ago. He was asking me some things about real estate. I tried to hook him up with the guy who was doing some investing. I don't know if that worked out, but David, yeah, he's awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Awesome dude.
so he was doing it, and I was like, man, like I should face that fear too.
Yeah.
If he's doing it, man, I could do it too.
Yeah.
And so I did an open mic, and then I just happened to be really good friends with this guy who'd been doing comedy his whole life, like his whole adult life. He'd been doing stand-up comedy. His name's Don Barnhart, and he was like doing classes on it. So I did the one mic, and I was like, hey, Don, would you kind of show me the ropes here? And man, he was a huge mentor in me getting started. It's like you work your act, like a very old school comic. And it's a lot like having that great black belt. Like he was kind of that frets and was like, nah, you got to polish this up. You got too much fluff here. Get to your punchline. You know.
Okay.
And just, I mean, it's verbal jujitsu, and someone can train you up on a little bit, but then at the end of the day, you gotta be the one out there firing the shots.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
It's fun. It's a fun. It fills that void that maybe like you lost from getting in front of all those thousands of people fighting.
What was scarier, your first mixed martial arts fight or your first bit as a stand-up comedian?
Oh, it was definitely the first mixed martial arts fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a special moment.
What year was that?
I was 21 years old. This was my first professional fight. Well, in Arkansas, they were all professional.
Oh, really?
So I fought in a casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma, at 21 years of age, and took the kid out in the second round. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I believe it was a rear naked choke. No, ground and pound. Ground and pound.
Yeah. That's what I
And it was maybe only 6 months into doing any form of grappling.
Okay.
I'd had maybe 30 boxing matches, some stuff.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, no, boxing was really my first passion. Like, I loved Mike Tyson.
Oh.
Like, I loved everything about boxing. And then actually I watched a UFC here in Vegas when I first turned 21. And I was watching them. I was like, oh man, like a really good boxer would run this shit. And then I learned, yeah, like MMA is a very complex, intricate fighting system. Like it's just these guys are well-rounded in every skill set.
So you started as a boxer, then you started grappling. Your grappling style was jiu-jitsu or like wrestling?
It was jiu-jitsu. So my friend Brent Smith was running a no-gi jiu-jitsu school.
Okay.
He was a Jean-Jacques Machado, like a blue belt.
Yeah.
But there was nobody grappling in Arkansas. So we ran this no-gi academy. And kind of, for Arkansas, it was pretty good. Yeah, and it was well suited for MMA.
Well, the question I want to ask you is because during this conversation, you've referenced jiu-jitsu and its similarities, or you using jiu-jitsu through pretty much anything in life. Jiu-jitsu specifically, not fighting specifically. I'm only a jiu-jitsu guy, recently started kickboxing, never done any MMA fighting. So why is it that you would give jiu-jitsu the credit versus just the overall skill of fighting to handle?
Because I think that jiu-jitsu, fighting it's like it's more just pure aggression, and jiu-jitsu is more like someone's applying a lot of pressure to you, and you're very calmly, methodically thinking out the best solution to this problem, to where I think that it's more applicable to the rest of the stresses of life. Man, if you go into this business meeting with a boxing mindset, I'm like, I'm gonna force my will upon you. Jiu-jitsu is almost like, let that guy force their will upon you and like use that momentum, get to that deep half, do the reversal, come in really aggressive, arm drag, get to the back, where it's like, you can almost take what they're giving you and make something really great out of it. And I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. I was just curious because you have experience in all of it, mixed martial arts, and to use the reference of jiu-jitsu, I was just curious how How you came up with that?
I mean, there's great lessons in boxing, and yeah, being a great counter fighter would have probably been a great idea.
Yeah.
Probably would have gotten hit a lot less. But I found that countering style in jiu-jitsu was where it kind of taught me that element of like, you go with the flow of life instead of trying to fight it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's really been a great life lesson.
For sure, for sure. I've noticed, like, since I've been doing the Muay Thai for a little over 2 years now, how I say jiu-jitsu is very passive-aggressive. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. And
I
boom,
mean
I
no
got-
harm.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
you're so strong. Nice
Yeah.
try, but I
Yeah.
just murdered you.
Yeah.
You know, oh, we'll do it again. Let's
Yeah.
go. Whereas like kickboxing and boxing, yeah, I'm in your face.
Yep.
Let's go. Like there's no passiveness there. It's like this is what's happening. It's all aggressive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think you said it all right there,
Dude. And that I think that kind of describes how I've changed over life. I'd never liked fighting. In one of the other shows I recorded recently, my dad, I came home from 8th grade and he opened up the door. He's like, dude, get in here. You got to see this. It was the first UFC. He's like,
Wow.
this tall, skinny guy in pajamas or in a karate suit is beating all these badasses up.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, oh, I don't want to watch that. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I left, went to my room. You know, fast forward, I was 13 years old. Fast forward almost 20 years, and I was a Gracie Black Belt, right? And I don't think of it as fighting now. I don't know what I consider it fun.
Yeah, yeah,
know?
it is. It really is interesting because I came from that boxing background, watching MMA, and I was seeing what they weren't doing as boxers, and now I go back and watch boxing, and I was like, it looks very one-dimensional. It doesn't look like true combat. It's like, just like jiu-jitsu doesn't look like
Right.
true combat.
Yeah.
And I say that as a lover of jiu-jitsu.
For
It's
sure.
like, we're manipulating a rule set to score points.
Of course.
You play jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game.
Yeah.
You know? But man, putting it all together in MMA, I'm like, that is artistry. It's phenomenal.
It is.
Like the guys that are good at it, like they're so good on the feet. They're so good in the clinch. They're so good on the ground. They're so good off the cage. They've evolved this into this whole thing that, man, 1993, I don't think you could have ever imagined
Yeah.
what it is now.
It is quite
And we
amazing.
probably still got another really good 20 years of development.
Really?
So these guys, it's like, so from birth, they're doing, it's not just jiu-jitsu. It's like you're putting all of these elements together through every training session.
Right.
From birth to full adulthood. It's
Yeah.
still evolving very rapidly.
Sure.
And I don't think we'll be, I mean, it'll never be done fully evolving. Just like basketball in the 70s looks a lot different than basketball now.
No
even though
doubt.
that's a much older game.
No doubt. What about like skateboarding and BMX? Have you see the shit they're doing on these?
Crazy, man.
Bro.
Crazy.
Like those dirt jumpers
Yeah.
and the motocross guys?
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
acrobats. They're
can't-
acrobats, dude. And
People like to get in that conversation of like this guy versus this guy. And it was like everything's evolved. And the
Yeah.
guys now got to learn and got to see what worked here. And everything keeps getting better.
bro, but
Like
first of
LeBron would put up 150 points back in
Sure.
the 60s, the
Sure.
70s.
Sure. But dude, just that level, the craziness of those extreme sport guys, it's insane. That's how high they're jumping, the maneuvers they're doing. It's insane.
Wasn't Tony
bro.
Hawk pulling off moves at 50 that he couldn't do it in his early
Right?
20s?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. It's inspiring.
It
You know
is
what?
inspiring.
I'm a big fan of seeing these guys stretch out longevity.
Sure.
Like I want to see a couple more years from Tom Brady.
Yeah,
Give
right.
us the midlife guys a lot of hope. Like, man, I still got it. That's Uncle Rico's.
Uncle Rico. There is a lot of guys in the UFC in their 40s right now.
Andre Arlovsky, 45.
45.
He's gonna fight on the Conor McGregor
Really?
card.
Oh, really?
Dude, he's been under UFC contract since 2002.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that was when he had his debut.
2002?
Yeah, but he's been top of the food chain for 25 years, man.
That's crazy, dude. And
Unfathomable.
Nick Diaz is coming back at 40.
Nick Diaz coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old is? So currently, I'm at Extreme Couture training.
Nice.
And actually, I
I think Roy Nelson's still strapping, and he's in
is
his
he
later
really?
40s too.
Is he really?
He's older than you, right?
Roy Nelson? I think so.
I think he
I'm not
just
sure.
fought a bare knuckle MMA match not too long ago.
Bare knuckle MMA? Oh, I didn't
Yeah,
even know that was
Jorge
a thing.
Masvidal has an organization.
Bare knuckle MMA,
Yeah,
not just bare knuckle
which
boxing.
I think frees up the grappling, and then also like you're going to see a lot less of those eye pokes because you can't hit anyone with this open hand or you're going to break it.
Right.
So,
Oh,
I think that might be one of the better ways to evolve MMA is like just get rid of the gloves.
Really?
Be really particular about where you strike. If you hit somebody in the top of the head, you're going to break your hand, and you should know that.
Damn.
Yeah.
Ouch. Ow.
Yeah.
Ah, that feels good. But so I just had a talk with Ryan's wife, Ryan Couture's wife over there, because every time I would come into the gym, I go straight to the bathroom, use the urinal, and right above the urinal they had a review journal article of when Randy knocked out Tim Sylvia at 43 years old.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, yeah, it's not too late for me. I
Yeah.
can still be in here training. Well, they just
Yeah.
remodeled the gym. And I was like, are you guys going to put the RJ article back up of when Randy knocked out Tim Sylvia? She's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I never go in the boys' room. I was like, oh, is it
Yeah.
RJ? It's
Yeah.
about this big. She's like, I'll find it. Let's put
Yeah.
it back up for you.
Yeah.
I was like, that's my
That's
daily
inspiring.
motivation, man.
Inspiring.
That's my daily motivation to keep going. Oh my gosh, dude. How long have we been talking? I could talk for hours with you about this
Yeah,
stuff. We've been
dude,
talking
this
for
has been great.
52 minutes.
That's awesome, man.
For 52
Yeah.
minutes. You're going to have to do this again with us in the
Absolutely.
studio or with us. It's
Absolutely.
me and my cameras. This is us.
This
This is us.
metaphorical.
But yeah, sorry for the inconvenience today.
No, this was awesome, man. I had a great time.
We were scheduled to do it in the studio, as you guys have seen previously, but there was some scheduling mishaps, so we're here in the conference room at Simply Vegas, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Dude, this was awesome.
Post more, dude. Keep us motivated, dude.
Hell yeah,
I love
brother.
watching your journey. And we need
Hell
to
yeah.
train. We haven't trained in
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So you're training at Syndicate, you said?
Yeah, whenever I can.
Whenever you can.
But
Okay.
yeah, now that I got your number, dude, let's touch base. And
Actually, Jerry and I are going back and forth right now to schedule a sit down to have a chat like this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we should do
yeah.
it in the gym. Everyone rolling, training.
Yeah, a lot of background noise there.
that'd be
just
fun, though.
random, just fox.
So I thought it would be fun to do this show, like have these conversations actually while doing a workout. And then at the end of the show, it would be like 3 1-minute rounds in the cage. You fight,
Yeah.
me and the guest fight.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I got a couple of good rounds left in me.
Oh my gosh, dude, that'd be hilarious. But anyways, dude, thanks for coming
yeah.
on. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Until the next time, we will see you at the top. Peace.
Thank you.